Allah, the Merciful, the Beneficent. Now the main headlines. Grand Ayatollah Shirazi welcomes the arrival of caravans of Iraqi pilgrims and appreciates their sincere loyalty. Historical mosque demolished in India to widen road. Over 160 Bahraini inmates lodged complaint over degrading prison conditions. "24 people freeze to death in Afghanistan." Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. This is Ayub Nouinou and you're watching Shia Waves live from Imam Hussein TV free. The Supreme Religious Authority, Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Sadiq al-Hussein al-Shirazi, welcomed the arrival of caravans of Iraqi pilgrims who came walking on foot to visit the holy shrines of Imam al-Rida and his sister, Lady Fatima al-Ma'suma, peace be upon them, appreciating their sincere loyalty to the pure progeny, peace be upon them. The Office of the Shirazi Religious Authority in the Holy City of Qom stated in a statement received by Shia Waves news agency that the Honourable House of His Eminence Grand Ayatollah Shirazi received a delegation from the caravan of Lady Fatima al-Zahra, peace be upon her, who came walking from the Iraqi city of Basra. It continued, His Eminence welcomed the guests with great hospitality and gave them a lecture in which he emphasized the greatness of reviving the rituals of the Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them, and visiting their honourable shrines. The pilgrims also attended and participated in the scientific session of His Eminence and listened to a lecture by the son of His Eminence, Ayatollah Sayyid Ja'far al-Shirazi. The statement pointed out that caravans of Iraqi pilgrims continue to walk to the holy shrines, passing by the house of the Shirazi Religious Authority, which they consider complementary to their blessed pilgrimage. Activists circulated on social media a video clip documenting the demolition of a large part of the historic Shahi Mosque by the Indian authorities in Allahabad, Uttar Pradesh, under the pretext of widening the road. The city police said in a statement that the Public Works Department is conducting expansion works for the main road in the Handia area, and that the presence of the mosque, which was built about 5 centuries ago, hinders this expansion. Local media reported that the mosque was demolished a few days before the judiciary was due to consider a lawsuit calling for stopping the demolition process, after the Supreme Court had earlier rejected a petition to stop its demolition. Muslims make up about 13% of India's population of 1.35 billion. Since the success of the ultra-nationalist Bharatiya Janata Party in retaining power after winning the general elections in May 2019, Muslims have been subjected to waves of violence. More than 160 imprisoned Bahraini political opponents and pro-democracy activists have protested against humiliating treatment, inhumane conditions and abusive treatment inside the kingdom's notorious Jaw prison, and filed a complaint in the hope that their situation would improve. The 162 detainees who are being held in building number 10 of the detention centre located south of the capital Manama, demanding that all prisoners should be treated humanely and that sustainable guarantees to the full resolution of their problems should be provided. The independent online newspaper Manama Post reported. The prisoners went on to point to the deepening gap between the prison administration and inmates and pleaded for an optimal and effective solution to their miseries, which are said to be exasperating day by day. They also called for the abolition of solitary confinement, adequate healthcare in Bahraini jails, permission to perform religious rituals and participate in the burial ceremonies of their relatives, and a reduction in the cost of contacting their families. Demonstrations have been held in Bahrain on a regular basis since a popular uprising began in the Arab country in mid-February 2011. People demand that the Al Khalifa regime relinquish power and allow a just system representing all Bahrainis to be established. Let us remind our respected viewers of today's headlines. Grand Ayatollah Shirazi welcomes the arrival of caravans of Iraqi pilgrims and appreciates their sincere loyalty. Historical mosque demolished in India to widen road. Over 160 Bahraini inmates lodged complaint over degrading prison conditions. Also tonight, major report on British Muslims in civil society launched. At least 20 people have died as a result of the severe frost across Afghanistan, which has damaged thousands of hectares of crops, hundreds of greenhouses and livestock in several provinces. Many of the victims belong to the cattle herding community. The local government spokesman, Ahmed Hanzala, said that the sharp drop in temperatures resulted in the death of about 4,000 heads of livestock. On the other hand, dozens of people entered hospitals in the western province of Herat, near the Iranian border, due to hypothermia, and some of them were part of a migrant caravan that intended to cross into Iran illegally. The cold weather has closed entry points to remote parts of Afghanistan, where there are already shortages of medicine and food. And now we continue with some short news. Within its activities throughout the year, especially in the winter, Misbah al-Hussein Foundation for Relief and Development, affiliated with the Office of the Supreme Religious Authority, Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Sadiq al-Hussein al-Shirazi, continue to distribute heaters to the families of orphans and the needy. The foundation continues to provide what the poor and needy families need, especially families of orphans, with food baskets, winter clothing, in addition to heaters. Nearly 25 million Nigerians are at risk of facing hunger between June and August 2023 if urgent action is not taken, according to the October 2022 Cadre Harmonisé, a government-led and UN-supported food and nutrition analysis carried out twice a year. This is a projected increase from the estimated 17 million people currently at risk of food insecurity. Continued conflict, climate change, inflation, and rising food prices are key drivers of this alarming trend. Food access has been affected by persistent violence in the northeast states of Borno, Adamawa and Yobe, and armed banditry and kidnapping in states such as Katsina, Sokoto, Kaduna, Benue and Niger. According to the National Emergency Management Agency, widespread flooding in the 2022 rainy season damaged more than 676,000 hectares of farmlands, which diminished harvests and increased the risk of food insecurity for families across the country. Legislators in Pakistan's upper house of parliament on Monday unanimously passed a resolution recommending that teaching the Holy Quran with its translation, tajweed and tafsir should be made compulsory in all universities of Pakistan for students of all disciplines. The Senate said, being a Muslim country, the new generation should learn the Holy Quran with details of tajweed and tafsir so that they should understand Islamic teaching completely. Bangladesh's armed police battalion is committing extortion, arbitrary arrests and harassment of Rohingya refugees already facing violence from criminal gangs and armed groups, Human Rights Watch said today. The armed police battalion took over security in the Rohingya camps in July 2020. Refugees and humanitarian workers report that safety has deteriorated under the battalion's oversight due to increased police abuses as well as criminal activity. Some refugees allege collusion between battalion officers and armed groups and gangs operating in the camps. The battalion's crackdown has compounded fear and vulnerability among the 1 million Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh, the majority of whom fled Myanmar military atrocities in late 2017. Yesterday, a major new paper was launched in the British Parliament. Commissioned by Mercy Mission UK and written by principal investigator and researcher Dr. Osama Al-Azmi, the British Muslim Civil Society report partly builds on the recently published census data for England and Wales, which found that Muslims now comprise 6.5% of the population. And in order to tap into the Muslim community's full potential, the piece makes a number of recommendations for policymakers and others in influential positions within civil society. Benefiting from contributions and advice from representatives of a number of British Muslim and educational entities, including the National Zakat Foundation, Cardiff University, Edinburgh University, the Muslim Council of Britain, and the Aziz Foundation, it is envisaged that the 48-page paper will spur stronger partnerships between Muslim civil society and local and national government. The report is welcomed for myriad reasons, with a big takeaway being the recommendation that policymakers and others implement the all-party parliamentary group on British Muslims' definition of Islamophobia, on top of calling for the tackling of structural racism and Islamophobia that hamper Muslim youth integration into mainstream society. Ahead of the launch, the Conservative peer and treasurer for the APPG on Muslims in Britain, Baroness Sayyida Warsi, said this report should be the beginning of important conversations between one of Britain's most civic-minded communities and various statutory and non-statutory bodies concerned with civil society as we build towards a better, more cohesive future in Britain. I hope this report will be read carefully by decision makers. The thorough report pays particular attention to various areas of British Muslim society that require improvements or the facilitation of support, as well as the flip side of providing huge benefits to wider British society. Al-Qaeda and ISIS extremist groups are driving insecurity in central Mali and continue to clash in the populated areas in the northern Gao and Menaka regions, the UN chief said in a new report circulated on Monday. Secretary General Antonio Guterres said the level and frequency of incidents of violence remain exceptionally high, with attacks by violent extremist groups against civilians accounting for the majority of documented human rights abuses. The attacks carried out against civilians by terrorist groups, the battle for influence among them, and violent activities conducted by community militias remain a chilling daily reality, as do the attacks against the Malian Defense and Security Forces and against MINUSMA, the UN peacekeeping force, he said. Guterres said in the report to the UN Security Council that going forward, military operations to combat the extremist groups will continue to be a crucial component for the restoration of security. In central Mali, he said, the extremists are capitalizing on intercommunal conflicts to expand their influence and secure new recruits. He said the number of people displaced in Mali increased from 397,000 to 402,620 as of October, with some 1,950 schools closed, affecting over 587,000 children. Humanitarian assistance is reaching only 2.5 million people of the 5.3 million in need, he said. Mali has struggled to contain the extremist insurgency since 2012. Cholera disease continues to spread in the regions of northern Syria in light of the delay in the arrival of vaccines to the regions amid the poor infrastructure and the large number of camps a few weeks ago. Syria received 2 million doses of cholera vaccine through the World Health Organization, while the vaccine has not yet reached some areas. The regions of northern Syria recorded hundreds of cholera cases, which caused dozens of deaths in light of the poor health infrastructure and the inability of local administrations and organizations to stop its spread. The large number of displaced persons in camps that lack hygiene conditions contributed to the spread of the disease, and the lack of safe drinking water and pollution caused by problems in the sewage networks also contributed to its spread. Sources from the health sector in northern Syria reported that they had been promised that they would receive cholera vaccines during the past few days. Yasser Najib, head of the executive committee of the Syria vaccine team, said that the World Health Organization agreed on December the 27th to provide cholera vaccines to northwestern Syria, expecting them to arrive within a few days. We have reached the end of today's Shia Waves news program. Let's remind our viewers of today's headlines. Grand Ayatollah Shirazi welcomes the arrival of caravans of Iraqi pilgrims and appreciates their sincere loyalty. Historical mosque demolished in India to widen road. Over 160 Bahraini inmates lodged complaint over degrading prison conditions. "24 people freeze to death in Afghanistan." Major report on British Muslims in civil society launched. United Nations, Al-Qaeda and ISIS driving insecurity in Mali. Amid poor infrastructure and increasing number of camps, cholera worsened in northern Syria. You can view the latest news on Shia Waves' website, and you can send your news of your city or country to be published on our news agency. Please contact us on the number at the bottom of the screen. This is the end of today's news, and thank you all for watching. We pray to Allah Almighty to hasten the reappearance of the Master of our time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
When I feel all alone and my heart needs to